Hi guys, welcome back to episode 4 of Elevate with Evani. I'm really excited to be here and I am coming at you from my home studio. I do have a guest that I am going to be doing a video call with. Her name is Amanda. She's my friend and fellow life coacher. She's absolutely amazing and I'm glad to have her as a virtual guest here on the show. So we're going to be talking about inner bravery, cutting the emotional cords, learning to let go, confronting our own patterns, and really just being in an authentic relationship with ourselves. So hopefully you guys enjoy and we're gonna go ahead and jump into it. Hey Amanda.
Hey, Evani.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So this is Elevate with Evani episode 4. I'm really glad for all of you guys to be joining us. I'm glad that we're here today and I got to bring on my friend Amanda. She is from my life coaching course. You guys know that I got my life coaching certificate at the beginning of last year and she was in the class with me. So I'm happy to be joined by a fellow life coach. And today we're going to be talking about letting go in like a broad sense, but more like inner bravery. At least that's how I'm framing it for right now. So, Amanda, would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
Yes, my name is Amanda Talijan and I'm a life coach. My practice is called Pyramis Wellness. And I just love helping people to achieve high value relationships, confidence, and empowerment because I feel like they're all in tune. Like when we have that connection with people, we feel our most powerful self. So, yeah, that's me.
Where can we find you on social media? How can we support you?
So across the board, it's Pyramis Wellness.
Okay.
TikTok, Instagram, website, everything is Pyramis Wellness.
Gotcha. Okay. So, you guys, last year, if you ever want any serious empowerment, I would binge her TikTok videos because they were so good. I mean, she still makes good videos and they're still out now. So, definitely go check her out. But
Thank
those
you.
videos were amazing and it was just so much life. I call them like a power shot, like Amanda the power shot. Because it was just so much life in like a little nugget. And I was like, oh my gosh, I needed this today. And it's absolutely amazing. I'm glad I ran across this because it'll get you up and it'll get you going. So team empowerment all the way over here. So
Appreciate that.
today
Yeah.
yeah, no, I love what you do. I love your work. I love
Thank
seeing
you.
how you've like flourished in the years since we've gotten our certificates, which is amazing. And I just know that like all of your work from this point forward is going to be even better. So
Mm,
I it's just going to go and grow from here. So help us out, okay? Help the people
let's
out.
do it.
Today, we're going to be talking about letting go, like I said, in a broad sense, but more so, I guess, when it comes to breakups and relationships and how we can let go of exes. Um, that was a struggle area for me, which is why I needed her content so bad. But it's also how we can confront ourselves. I know a big part of your platform, too, is not just the relationships we have with other people, but the ones we have with ourselves. So, first question is how do we or why is it so difficult for us to let go of an ex or let go of a relationship that we used to be in?
So I feel like across the board, and this is a very peculiar way to answer this, but I think it's fantasy thinking. And
Mm,
fantasy based thinking is great when you're dreaming and you're designing the life you want. But when it comes to relationships, especially ones that haven't worked out, when we use fantasy based thinking to inform the decisions we're making, we're kind of acting in insanity because we know it's not going to be that way, but we want it to be. It's that thing of like, believe people when they show you who they are. So, because it's comforting to live sometimes in the fantasy. And fantasy also includes things like revenge based thinking or hopeful thinking based off of something that we know deep within us isn't going to work, or rewiring the past, if based questions, if I would adjust, all of that kind of fantasy based belief system that we create holds us back from seeing past this present pain, I would say.
mhm, mhm. I completely agree with that, and I think too, it's also at least for me, yes to the fantasy based thinking, but that stems, at least in my soul, it stems from emotional familiarity.
Yeah,
Like it's easier for me to go back to something familiar. Like I'll go on a growth journey, I'll grow to a certain point, and then it's like there's so many things that are changing. I want one thing to stay the same, and then I'll like reach back out to something familiar because I want to
yeah.
hold on to something familiar. And it's like, actually, that's the exact thing you need to let go. Like
Right,
that's the exact
exactly,
thing.
yeah.
And that fuels the fantasy of like, hey, you gotta confront your old patterns and let them go. Like you have to also break up with the version of you that was in the relationship. And I think that's something you had said in one of your
Yeah.
TikTok videos or your Instagram videos, which hit me hard. It's not just breaking up with that other person, but also breaking up with the version of you that was involved with that other person and those
Definitely.
patterns. It's so much to unbecome and undo, but you got to do the work and you got to let go.
Yeah, yeah, because and you know that a lot of times like clients or people on the internet will just like say to me in the comments and whatever, they're like, I just don't want to feel like this anymore. But the thing
Mm,
is like to not feel like that, it's even more uncomfortable. So I know you're uncomfortable now. And like sometimes I'll confront people with that and I'll say, okay, as uncomfortable as you are right now, are you ready to be a little bit more uncomfortable? Because there's this thing that we do as people, which is we will continue to do the same thing because it's known and it's unproductive. So we commit to the unproductive known instead of trying a productive unknown
wow.
because it's unknown. And it's the same with a breakup. It's like that what you said, I am so aligned with that and I believe it so much and I say it to all my clients, you have to let go of that version of yourself too because that version of yourself planned a life with that person. This
Mhm,
version of yourself who knows that that didn't isn't going to work out and didn't work out can still have that life, but it's not with that person. And it's like just one little thing we have to unlearn and let go of, which is the person, which is so hard to do, you know, and who we were with them and why we thought we deserved and accepted that kind of treatment because that's not aligned with us anymore and we have to accept that, you know?
mhm, mhm. Absolutely. I think that it's so important too because emotions play such a big part, at least for me. I cannot speak for everybody. Emotions play such a big part. And it's like, hey, you kind of have to get out of your, what I call like emotional delusion,
Yeah.
because it does fuel all of those thoughts. And like you were saying, people, they don't want to feel that. And it's like, you kind of have to feel the feeling until it's no longer required to be felt. I forget which psychologist says that all the time, but you have to feel things all the way through.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes the lack of closure is what keeps me in the open loops, or what keeps people in the open loops and going back to things that are the familiar but unproductive known, like you were saying. And
Yeah.
it's like you can't keep going back to what you know, because you do also know, like, it's unproductive. And it's like,
Yeah.
girl, if you don't get the closure you need, and how do we get closure? Like, say the other person moves on real quick, never turns around, never looks back. How do we get closure within ourselves?
Well, I would say, like, because I think that that's something too that's so hard for people to digest. It's like, I actually had someone comment this a while ago on a TikTok, and I found it so interesting. And it said, "My ex moved on in 3 weeks, and all this focus was on the ex. Like, they moved on in 3 weeks. They're never going to get over this. It's going to come back to bite them, whatever." All the while, of course, the reason why you would be focused on something like that is because that person was in pain that they moved on so quickly, you know? And I think that we sometimes when we end a relationship or we're broken up with or we it doesn't work out, we live in this space of focusing solely on the other person, what
Mm,
they're doing, checking their Instagram, talking about them, getting information, trying to build this idea of like are they going to be okay? Are they watching me? And, you know, sometimes our friends can fuel that fire as well, saying things such as, oh, he'll see, she'll see, don't worry about it. And so we live in this space of putting all of our effort on what they're doing and what we're going to prove to them instead of how do I feel? And to really close that chapter and to begin to venture into closure, for me, I always say, like, I wish I could say, like, do this and it's going to be amazing. It's not like that. It's like, commit to practices, rituals, and whatever is going to make you feel good and motivate you to get out of bed and to keep going on every day that's focused on you. So stop looking, stop asking, don't creep. Maybe don't go to places that are going to incite that kind of feeling within you. Take a break from what was and hone in on your pain, where you're at, and why it didn't work, what you're struggling with, how you can now move on into this new version of yourself. But letting go of focusing on that other person, I think that's the real like hold up, and why it takes sometimes so long to find that closure is because of that focus on the other person.
I completely agree. Like completely 110% agree because your all of your energy goes towards the broken connection. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, how do I get over the pain? Like I guess even to the relationship we have with pain, and that can be something we revisit in a little bit, but it's all of your energy going towards the broken connection. And then it's like because the other person was on the other end of it at one point, now that they're not on the other end of it, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, where does it go? And it's
Right.
this rewiring of your brain. Like you have to turn it around, like put that energy back on the inside, not continually letting it go towards the outside and then also towards this other person. Because even though energetically they might not, be physically there, I feel like it's still that your energy's leaving and going in a certain direction because that's what your body's used to. And you kind of have to
Yes.
unlearn that, like, hey, I'm not in that relationship with that one person anymore. And your energy doesn't have to go, it doesn't have to flow in that one way. It now needs to turn back inward. And then so you can see the mirror of like what's going on with you, and you can heal like the brokenness, whatever that is. I know for me specifically, it being I guess like in a broken relationship, well, like it ending and then me having to turn my energy back on the inward, like inside, it gave me a lot of illumination, a lot of mirroring of like my
Yeah.
own patterns. And it's like, okay, girl, like you were saying, definitely focus on yourself and not just the other person and what they're doing, but how I can move forward. And it's like, look at all the brokenness that exists just within you, not within the partnership, not within, what happened with you guys, like just within you. And so it's like, okay, if I have to put my energy there, it can be very painful. And
Yeah.
revisiting, the relationship we have with pain, I know for me it's kind of voluntary pain versus involuntary pain. It's like, hey, this might be uncomfortable right now and I don't like it, but I'm still willing to move through it versus avoiding it. I know in my past I was emotionally avoidant, so it's like I just want to go around it, I want to put it on the shelf, I want to hang it up in the closet and just like kind of forget about it because that's more comfortable. But it's like,
Of course.
no, be friends with the discomfort,
Yeah.
befriend the discomfort, move through it, invite it in, let it show you what it needs to show you so then you can move beyond it. And I know I have definitely gotten stuck not wanting to see myself, because I didn't want to feel the pain, but that relationship with self is so important. So what would you say is like the first most important thing if we're going to try and improve the relationship that we have with ourselves?
Ugh, it's so hard. It's like, hold up that mirror. You have to
Mhm.
hold the mirror up, and it's so uncomfortable, like you said, but I think, something to improve the relationship with ourselves, and also touching on everything you just said, that's so beautiful, like, I resonate with everything you said so, so much because it really is, we're so comfortable in these, like, broken patterns, like you said, and broken emotions that it feels home. It's that idea of, like, when someone cheats on you, how they're the only person who can comfort you. It's that
Mhm.
same kind of idea, like, I just need them because they make it better. It's this thing that happens within us, like, so how do we get past all of that? And it's, yeah, the idea of just holding up that mirror. And I think when you hold up that mirror, you start to realize where the emotional cords are connected to things that are completely unaligned. But until you can really start to, like, see how you feel, assess things that happened, listen to your body and how it reacts to certain memories or people or the ideas of going places, and start to get more in tune with you without the effects of what's going on with everybody else, the more you can start to realize where you're kind of triggered and where those emotional cords are connected to things that are not helping you and not of interest to your lifestyle. Because what I've noticed, and in myself too, because a lot of this work stems from a really bad relationship that I had, and it's what I think like has sparked me to feel so aligned in this, is my life has been a process of unlearning that really traumatizing time and trying to better myself through it. And I'm in a super healthy relationship now, and there's still things sometimes that I'm like, oh, I feel that part of me that's like, I want to react crazy because we're connected sometimes to things that happen to us in patterns that we've been in for so long. And
Mhm.
so the unhealthy patterns, until we break it, they're usually the majority of our life that we spend in them. So even if we are in a healthy relationship or feel more confident, it's so new that we can revert back sometimes. So this idea of holding up the mirror, and to this day, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I feel myself wanting to venture into a space that I now know isn't aligned with me, but where is that coming from? And
Mhm.
finding what I'm still emotionally connected to. I have this meditation, like this 8-step process of cutting emotional cords. And I've done it with some clients. And the crazy part about it is, if you do that repetitively, this idea of like visualizing, like actually untangling this within you and letting go of whatever is not serving you again and again and again, it begins that process of feeling more confident and being in tune with yourself because you're in control.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I resonate so much with that. Even just the phrase emotional cord, it's like that's exactly what it is. These are
Yeah.
ties. And it's
Hmm.
it's the excuse me, the concept of having to detangle. And I'm here on the channel very familiar with detangling like my
Yeah.
hair and everything else, but it's trying to detangle your soul and figure out where things are coming from and getting to the root of how it started, like what was the original seed. And I think, at least for me, when I've gone down these rabbit holes of trying to figure out where the root is, it does matter. Like, you definitely have to find like the origin, and then you can start to detangle the rest of it and say, hey, that wasn't in alignment with me, or
Mhm.
hey, I did that because of peer pressure, or hey, I did that because of my parents, or finding out where you veered off or when you got out of alignment with yourself. Because I know for me too, there can be a lot of cognitive dissonance, a lot
Yeah.
of me adjusting reality or justifying what's happened to me because it is painful or it is something I couldn't really detangle before. And so
Mhm.
I'll just push it to the background or push it to the back burner. And it's
Same.
like, and it's like, I can't keep doing that. That's not an actual way to move forward. That's not actually processing. It's just
Mhm.
you stockpiling up a whole bunch of things that you eventually will have to process, because you'll end up in the same patterns over and over again.
For
And
sure.
it's so important for us to also realize that like recovery is not a straight line. I think I hold myself to unrealistic expectations sometimes too, where getting triggered might trigger me like way, way back, like way
Right.
far, far back. And
Right.
it's like, you know what? I'm okay realizing and recognizing, like you said, holding up the mirror to myself and realizing, hey, I'm not in a good place right now. And I wish that I were somewhere else, but it's processing like this is something that sent me back. I am okay with where I am right now.
Mhm.
I choose to respond and not react as much because I have the awareness to go off of, and not just like the knee jerk reaction or like the body remembrance of it all, because we do
Mhm.
keep like our emotions in our body, and then
Course.
moving forward out of it. It's like
Yeah.
I gotta get back to where I know I'm supposed to be. Like, I understand where feels like home, and it's no longer this thing. So definitely moving forward, but like understanding if you do take steps back, it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm still unhealed. I gotta get back
Yeah,
into therapy. I gotta
no.
do all this stuff. It's like, no, girl, you're gonna be okay. You just got
Yeah.
triggered for a second. Check in with yourself. Use
Mhm.
the tools that you learned. You're
Exactly.
gonna be good.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like that too, and, like, even for myself, same. I hear you so loud because I'm
Mhm.
like, I am the same where I'm like, "What? We're here again?" But this
Mhm.
thought process that I have now on it, it's like, you have to let go and move forward, and everything comes in waves. Like, it's still part of the story, and as much as we know something doesn't serve us or didn't serve us and we don't want it anymore, it still happened. It's part
Mhm.
of the history, you know? There's so much history that we don't love, but we still have to address it sometimes. And I feel like for me, what's helped me so much in those moments is being like, hard days do not negate the work that I'm doing, and the
Mhm.
good days I need to really celebrate, because there is this thing that happens where we can focus sometimes on the negative of that feeling of what is going on? Why do I feel this way? And it usually comes in like, it's not like 5 minutes of like, oh, I'm feeling a little low or triggered right now. It's like a week. And you're like, why is this week terrible?
Long term, yeah.
Yeah, but it's gonna happen because those things happened, you know? And
Mhm.
there's, it's just so much like the onion. Like, there's more and more layers to get through, and
Mhm.
every
And
chapter of our life and every chapter of growth, there's more to let go of because we understand more about the traumas that happen too in the growth.
yeah, and it might make you cry.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. That's so important too, I think, to recognize our humanity, you
Mhm.
know? It's like I don't have all the answers, I might not ever get them. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I have grown a lot, but I know I still have a lot of growing to do. I am okay with that. And
Mhm.
then really, like, accepting and embracing all sides of ourselves, because I know personally, I would, like, villainize certain sides, or, like, if I digress, it's like, "Ugh, I can't believe this."
Right.
Like, and I
Yeah.
would just have such little tolerance for me. And it's like, no, it is like you were saying, part of the story, part of the history. It's in the narrative. And if you want to change it, moving forward is how you change it. Going back is not how you change it, you
Mm-mm.
know? Like, yes, it's how you can recognize things and how you can, get the awareness, but moving forward is how you actively make those changes. And I think too, I've also been guilty of trying to make big changes very quickly, which is not sustainable. And
Yeah,
so it's those 1 degree changes every day. And like you were saying, celebrate yourself when you do recognize your growth and you do show up in your full awareness. And it's like, hey, I made a better decision, and look at where I am now in comparison to where I would have been had I not made this change. So
exactly.
it's definitely giving ourselves grace to not having unrealistic, like perfectionistic expectations of ourselves, because that, I think, kind of leads to regression as well.
Mhm.
At least in me. It's
Same,
like
same.
having such a high lofty expectations just sets you back some more. It's like you're setting it so high, like, you can't actually go beyond that. So
Mhm.
you're already setting yourself up for failure. And it's like, don't do that. You're gonna be
Yeah.
okay. All of you is gonna be okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
Aligned.
Yeah.
Affirmed.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you say is, like, a way, like, outside of holding up the mirror, what is a good way that we can recognize our own patterns? Because I know for me, had there not been like a life coach or a therapist, it would be very difficult to
Yeah,
have, to kind of get the self-awareness, because you almost need as much of an unbiased third party as you can to see who you are and how you show up, and where you might be playing the victim, or where you might not be showing up as your best self. Like, I needed other people to kind of be the mirror. So if you don't have like those trusted sources in your life, how would we start to like build a better relationship with ourselves?
yeah, I mean, the first thing I always say is I'm like, get support. Support
Hmm.
is the main thing because, like, wow, to be able to really do that on your own with, no tools from any outside source is like, wow, you're just a superhuman and you probably don't have this problem because
Right.
you're probably good actually. But yeah, it's getting support. And if you don't have the access or way to get that support, I think there's just so many tools that you can access online of like worksheets and whatever ways to commit to these kind of practices. And one that I really like is this idea of pattern tracking.
Mhm.
So let's just take relationships, for example. So looking back on all your relationships, say you just got out of a breakup, you're really struggling, or you're continuing to have like a boundary issues with a family member or something, going through and tracking the patterns of your pain. So every time a boundary is crossed, what's the pattern of that? Is there a conversation that usually happens? Is there a way you usually feel? Is there a something that someone usually says that makes you forego your boundary and agree with them? Breakups, are you dating the same kind of people? What kind of people are they? Why are you accepting that? What kind of partner do you really want? So I feel like this kind of self assessment, and I know it sounds kind of weird, like a study or something, but I think that self work really is that. And when we choose to really hone in on this one thing is holding me up, this one thing is stopping me from being that version of myself that's over that hill mountain, and I want to get there. We have to look at all of the things that we do and the ways that we react in that situation that create for us to get the same result. So pattern tracking is what I would say. Does that make sense?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Pattern tracking, and I'll just add reading. I know getting the language is
Mhm.
also a really big defining factor for me. At least like when I first started therapy and I first started life coaching, it was me actually realizing, hey, there's a term for this, there's a word for this.
Yes.
A lot of times, my emotional detangling, I couldn't even articulate what I was feeling
Mhm.
or how I could, express myself because I just didn't have the words. I just didn't know. And so the more that I read and I got, books by psychologists and spiritual people and, just different personal
Yeah.
development and life advice, I would start to get the words that could help me figure out what was going on with me. And then it was like, oh, I can put a name to this. Like I can label this. And then when it starts to come up again, it's like, oh, I can just find the label. And I don't know why labeling things helps me categorize it better,
Of
um,
course.
and helps me heal faster, heal through it, process it faster. But I also, I know, like you said, the pattern recognition, but then also the language that I learned in all of my self-work, all of my self-study.
So powerful, such a powerful thing. I agree so much. I think it is like it's hard to, because we feel all these feelings, but we don't really have it, what feels like sometimes the proper way to explain ourselves. And it doesn't always have to be so wordy. I mean, even boundaries, I think, are such a important quality for us to have. And a lot of people know what boundaries are, but how do you set them? And I think
Mhm.
having the knowledge and the verbiage that you get from reading and looking into these kind of things allows you to be able to set them in a way that feels authentic to you, because it's not just like, okay, now you do this. It's like, this is the way you can do it. And then you can make it your own, which then allows you to really hone in on that practice and use it daily with all the people in your life or all the things in your life, you know?
Absolutely. I completely agree that because like you were saying with when you start to do it, it's like not just doing it for yourself or doing it one time. It's like it's really establishing a new pattern. So you have to do
Yes.
it and make it authentic to you and how you show up in the world. And then I know a lot of times your world will start to shift
Mhm.
because of the new pattern and dealing with either broken relationships, friendships, people that you've known for a long time, family, definitely family. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, there's gonna be some shifts after you shift your pattern. There can be like shifts in your external world and
Mhm.
how you navigate. And that also can be like really, really difficult to deal with. I know for me too, I I don't know, I feel like I have like an inner fire, like an inner drive, an inner ambition. And
You
it's like,
do.
okay, well, which is good, but
Yeah.
sometimes when people tell me no, it's like, oh well, watch, I'm gonna show up and do it anyway, and it's kind of like this revenge mentality
Mhm.
around either healing or getting the language or personal development. Like I've healed up beyond this, and
Right.
like I'm not part of that. I'm not aligned with that anymore. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, girl, like that can only take you but so far,
Correct.
really actually making those 1-degree changes, establishing the boundaries, forming a new pattern within yourself, and then letting the world adjust to what's going on with you now. It's like, okay, that's more sustainable. But what advice would you give for people who are kind of I guess revenge healing, what we call revenge
Mhm.
healing?